All right, good morning, folks. Good morning. Great to have you here. We're going to cover Big I this morning, or ego. Okay? So let's jump into this. Ego, in the rooms, in classes, in lectures. What do we understand ego to stand for? Edging or easing God out. Easing God out. All right. So our operational statement this morning is this. Recovery is about learning to accept people, places, and things that are not in my control. Learning to accept people, places, and things that are not in my control. Okay? For most of us, we like to control things. It's a human tendency. Okay? When things are out of our control, we are not able to manipulate or control things and situations. We tend to get rather edgy, uncomfortable, tense, angry. So part of recovery is learning how to let go of that and accept people, places, and things that are not in my control. Learning to accept the reality that much of life is actually not in my control. All right. So one example of the Big I, we're going to break this down into pieces here as we go along. But one example of the Big I is being focused and angry towards others who do not say or do things the way I think they should be said or done. Okay? I have an idea how things should roll. I have an idea how things should play out. I'm used to kind of controlling things, pulling the puppet strings. But I become focused and angry on situations, people, scenarios that don't play out the way that I think they should play out. And they don't say things that I think they should say or do things I think they should do. So in essence, what that points to is that the Big I is godlike and egocentric. Okay? The Big I is godlike and egocentric. My ego compels me to believe, either consciously or subconsciously, that I'm God. I call the shots. The world's going to operate the way I want it to. My environment's going to operate the way I want it to. Okay? Why? Because I'm the one that's in control. I'm the one that calls the shots. Right? So if this is the universe, or my universe, then this is where I sit. At the center of it. Okay? The Big I likes to live by the creed, I want what I want when?
Right now.
When I want it, and that's right now. Or yesterday would be even better. Okay? As addicts, we especially tend to live by that conviction. Okay? Let me ask you something. Any of you know addicts?
No.
Any of you try to get in the way of an addict who's decided I need my fix?
Yep.
You don't want to do that. Okay? Because when I start jonesing and I decide it's time for my next fix, is anything going to stand in my way?
Well,
Hell no. No. Nothing's going to stand in my way. Right? I'll do what I have to do. I'll step over whoever I have to step over. I'll trample the crowds to get it. And it's in this situation that many of us do and say the things that we regret the most later on. Because very often, those who get trampled in our decision to take care of whatever it is I believe I need or want at the moment are people that we love the most. Parents, spouses, kids, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? Okay. feel bad about themselves often put on a false front of confidence. The person in the community, the person over at the smoking tables that talks the loudest, brags the loudest, okay? You know the one I'm talking about? Or the ones I'm talking about? Okay? Those are very often the ones that are feeling the crappiest about themselves on the inside.
I know. Right on cue.
What is that? Not surprising.
I need another meeting for that.
Somebody wants to watch me.
So here's the deal. And this is why we talk about higher power. I'm going to throw this in for free. This is why we talk about higher power so much in the 12-step process. We're not trying to make you monastics. We're not trying to make you religious freaks. What we've learned is that the addict and his ego are at the front of the addiction problem. We are at the center of our universe, which is what compels us to behave the way we do. If anything's going to knock me out of the center of the universe, it's probably going to be a higher power. It's probably going to be God. Because I'm probably not going to give that position up very easily or to something less than. That's just how we are. Does that make sense? So the process of getting out of the way, getting out of the center of the universe and learning to accept people, places, and things that are not in my control, that process is accomplished effectively through the process of pressing into your spirituality. Letting God move you out of the center of that universe. Okay? So let's break it down a little further. There are actually two eyes. We talk about the big eye, and this is essentially ego. But in real life, it plays out in at least two different ways. All right? Over here on the left, we have the big eye. And on the right, we have the little eye. See, as addicts, we're really good at one thing. And that is manipulation.
Yeah.
Right? It goes back to when we want our fix, what are we going to do?
Everything.
It's going to say, the slogan is, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. So, we become expert manipulators. How do we do that? Well, oftentimes we go to big eye. But sometimes, if the big eye's not working, we pull a switch on and we go to little eye. This will make sense in just a minute. So, what are some of the beliefs in the big eye? Big eye says, I can do what? Anything I want. Rules don't apply. Right? Rules simply don't apply. How does the big eye control? How does the big eye control others? Okay? 2 words. Anger and intimidation. Anybody like that? What's their conviction? That the world revolves around who?
Me, myself, and I.
Exactly. The Holy Trinity. The unholy Trinity. And then find the big guy strives constantly to manipulate others in his or her environment. Okay? So when I'm in big I, can do anything, rules don't apply, I'm going to manipulate and control with anger and intimidation, the world revolves around me. If, for some reason, this methodology is not working, am I done? Is my goal blocked and defeated? Am I not going to get my fix? Absolutely not. What I do is I switch. I go to little I. Who's the little I? Let me introduce you to the little I. Little I can't do anything. Are you feeling sorry for me yet? I don't deserve.
They don't like me.
Right? I don't matter.
All the whammy.
Yeah. I'm flawed. In other words, little I plays the victim or the martyr. What's a martyr?
For me, feel sorry for me.
Okay, that's kind of more victim. What's a martyr?
JC.
Like Christ.
Someone who sacrifices himself for a cause.
Okay, yeah. Somebody's putting themselves up, sacrificing themselves. I live for this family, and I don't get anything in return. Okay? I'm serving and serving and serving the community, and what do I get? I just get crapped on. You know, playing the martyr, playing the martyr, playing the martyr. Okay? So if big I doesn't work, okay, I'm going to pick up on that pretty quick. Why? Because I'm a master manipulator. So immediately I'm going to what? I'm going to switch to little I. And so how do we control others in our environment? We alternate back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? We keep them on their heels. We keep them guessing. You ever notice if a big I switches to a little I, we immediately think, oh, wow, he's changed. Look at that humble attitude. And the addict's grinning from ear to ear on the inside because he's got you hooked. Right? He's just minutes away from his goal. All right. Now, here's the deal. Regardless of whether you're a big I or a little I, both do several things in common or alike. Okay? Both are hypersensitive. Does this characterize you? If you're an addict, I would bet money it does. You will not find drama queens as eloquent and dramatic and as refined as addicts. Okay? The drama queen is one of our strengths. It's one of our go-to roles. Right? It's what justifies our addiction. I've heard some pretty crazy excuses for using. Okay? But if you hang out with an addict for any length of time, you'll hear anything from, I don't like this television show, I'm out, to I gotta hang now, I need to fix. We're always looking for reasons and opportunities. So for drama queens, that just opens up the whole world of opportunities. Okay? So we have to constantly be aware. That's why we talk about sponsorship so much in the program. That's why we talk about surrounding ourselves with a group of people that hold us accountable. Yeah. So I have people that are watching me, that are paying attention. Okay? They see when I'm going in the drama queen mode. And they walk up, kick me in the ass and say, knock this shit off. And I have to step back and go, all right, you're right. I'm working it. I'm moving back into that mentality. Remember, relapse is always a second away. Relapse. All relapse is this. Turn around and your relapse is right there waiting to embrace you. Okay? Don't fall for the belief that as you stay in your programming, as you stay in your meetings, you keep meeting with your sponsor, you keep working the program, that relapse is getting further and further and further away. Folks, the reality is your relapse is always waiting to bite you in the you-know-what. And it's that close. Okay? So that's why we have to move away from this big I syndrome. We have to move away from this drama queen stuff, being hypersensitive. Because these are the things that are going to make us do that flip. Relapse is happening in your mind way before the actual relapse ever happens. Any of you here for your second, third, fourth rodeo?
Oh, yeah.
Can you amen what I just said?
Amen.
Okay? Relapse is happening in your head long before it actually takes place. Okay? Hopefully. Worst case scenario, you're already thinking about it while you're in recovery. And for many of you, that could be true. For many of you sitting here right now, in this lecture, who are clean and sober, you've already mapped out your next relapse. You've already mapped out your next use. How do I know that? From having done this for many years, but also because I understand it. Having walked the walk myself. We could be sitting in a recovery center 2 weeks clean, planning our next use. And that's very often what happens. So we have to be aware of that. We have to bring that around to the front of our minds. See, relapse likes to flank us. You know what flanking is? It's a military term.
See, you got from behind.
Yeah. Relapse likes to go out of our field of view. My field of view is about right here. Okay, my peripheral vision goes out to about right here. But my relapse is going to go around my field of view and it's going to flank me. So now it's got behind me. I'm not paying attention, but it's messing with me in my subconscious. Right? I'm thinking about stuff. That's why recovery is so damn hard. Is we have to apply ourselves non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months a year. Constantly. Okay? All right. So here's the thing. We talked about loops the other day. Remember we talked about infinite loops? So how does this work? Does my addiction drive my ego? Or did my ego drive me to my addiction?
Ego drinks the addiction.
They both drive each other.
It's a chicken egg kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't actually really matter. The bottom line is, do I understand this? And again, in order to be successful in my recovery, my sobriety, and little life of sobriety, as opposed to a week or a month or a few months, I have to be active in breaking this infinite loop. So while you're here, our hope is that we can encourage you and move you towards addressing both the addiction and the ego. There's the physical addiction, there's the chemical addiction, there's all of that. But after a couple of weeks, that's probably going to burn off and burn out if you're not using it. Now what are you left with? Yeah. Ego. So that's why relapse is so easy for us, because if we don't kill both of these at the root, what's going to happen? It's going to come right back. Okay? Addiction causes me to be ego-driven. Addiction causes me to be ego-driven. If it was my ego that got me into my addiction, which is very likely, I guarantee you it's your addiction that will continue to fuel and grow your ego. Huge. Okay? What's that? Miracle Grow. You all know what Miracle Grow is? It's like pouring Miracle Grow on your ego.
Yeah.
That thing's just going to huge. Yeah, question?
I think more often than not, it's a lack of ego that gets people into an addiction than ego. That's what I've seen. You get around this word.
Okay, elaborate.
It's people that, like, you hear the same story over and over again. I didn't feel like I fit in, I didn't feel right, I didn't feel like I belong, I didn't feel this, I didn't feel that. It's a lack of, not in exaggeration.
Okay.
That's what I noticed.
Okay.
I don't see people that are doing real great and life's good and then they just get addicted to drugs. It's usually because of the deficiency that they feel they have in their head.
Okay, so it's over here on the little eye. Remember we talked about big eye, little eye?
Okay, well, we're talking about why people get their addictions. We're talking about ego. You said ego makes people become drug addicts. I think it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, but when we talk about ego in general, we could say either ego on the big eye, on the big side of it, where it's what we just talked about, that hyper-inflated part, or lack of ego, like you said, little eye. I don't matter, right? I don't deserve. Okay? But we're still talking about ego. Either presence of, hyper-inflated presence of, or little ego. Non-existent, or barely existent. Okay? So let's ask the question, is it wrong for us to have an ego? No.
It's human nature.
Ego is what keeps us upright. Ego is what keeps us moving forward. It keeps us on our feet. It gives us ambition, healthy ambition, hopefully. Drive. Right? The problem is, ego very easily gets off the leash and gets away from us. Once we get it, once it gets to a healthy place, it keeps going. It keeps growing. So as addicts, our goal is to have a balance. Can I believe in myself? Absolutely. Should you believe in yourself so much that you trample others?
No.
That you take advantage of others? No. So let's talk about this from a childhood development perspective. So when we're kids, little kids, we are primarily led by our emotions. Okay? Babies are guided by their emotions and basic survival instincts. So what happens when you're a baby? If I get hungry, what do? I cry. How does a parent know the baby's hungry?
Right.
Because it is crying. Okay? When we hurt ourselves as babies, what do? We cry. When we're sleepy and irritable, what do? We cry. Okay? We're emotionally driven. The challenge for us as addicts is, very often, in our adult years, we are still leading emotionally driven lives. We haven't learned how to balance and bring equilibrium to our minds and our emotions. Example. When my youngest was a toddler, well, not even a toddler, before he was a toddler, when he was crawling, he had this unquenchable fascination with electrical outlets. Okay? So what do parents say? Well, just put those little electrical outlet guards in the plug, right? I'll take care of it. Yeah. So what he did was very quickly learn how to pull those out. Okay? And then with his unquenchable thirst for understanding and knowledge with an electrical outlet, he would stick his fingers in the outlet. We always knew it happened, it was happening because we hear it pop and then a loud wail. Okay? And we find him alongside one of the walls by one of the outlets. I'll never forget it. In church one Sunday, I just gotten done delivering the message. And I was looking at the back and I was walking towards the back of the sanctuary and I saw my little one. My wife had put him down on the ground for a second. She was talking with a friend. And she wasn't paying attention and he started moving right towards the back of the sanctuary, right from one of the outlets. And so I'm moving, walking as fast as I can, trying not to look like a fool, going into a full sprint. Trying to get to the back because I knew what he was going to do. And sure enough, he got to the back before I could, reached up, and stuck his finger in the outlet, popped, and he started crying. So everybody's looking. We're trying not to look like old parents. Hoping nobody calls CPS. So we get home that afternoon and we're having lunch. They're playing, my two sons are playing in the bedroom. And I noticed Gabe come crawling out of the bedroom. And you can well imagine what he starts crawling towards. Not an hour earlier did he get sat by an outlet. An hour later, we're having lunch. He's on the ground crawling towards another outlet. So I was going to get up and get him, and I thought, I'm going to sit here and just wait and see. Maybe he'll change his mind. So he crawled up and he sat down and looked at the outlet. Then he waited a second. And then he brought up his hand and touched the outlet. Happened again. Sat. Nailed him again. Now he's crying all over again. What my little one failed to do, as all babies do, is learn from his mistakes. Within 1 hour, he had reached out and stuck his finger into 2 separate outlets. Both electrocuted him, both hurt, and he cried for quite a while after both incidents. That is a perfect picture of we addicts. We do not learn from our mistakes. I struggled and struggled and struggled and still do to this day to learn from my mistakes. Now, I can stand up here proudly and say I have a master's degree. But if you watched me on a day-to-day basis in my own personal life, you would scratch your head and go, how in the hell did he pull that off? Because I don't learn. I still do the same thing. I'm still in that process of learning how to learn from my mistakes. And this is one of the primary goals for us. To shift from leading emotionally driven lives to balancing our emotions with our minds. And that is learning from our mistakes. Understanding that just because I want to do something doesn't mean I should do it. And even asking the question in and of itself can be a challenge for us. Because when we really want something, emotionally, we really want it. That's why I asked the question at the beginning of the class, have you ever tried to get between an addict and his or her substance? Because we know what we want. We know how to make us feel. And we want to feel that feeling. We want to feel that payoff, that reward, that high, or that numbness. In many cases, what happens after a while is we want to use because we don't want to feel at all. And that's the root. We stop. Either way, it's being emotionally driven. So in our pursuit of sobriety and a life of recovery, we have to learn to shift. We have to learn to bring equilibrium to our lives. Achieve that balance between what my emotions want and what my mind says is helpful. What I know is the right thing to do. Any of you have experience with this? Charlie?
Well, I can relate to the fact that I, for instance, when I got my problems, I'd rather just resort to using being around than anything, because then you don't have to deal with the issue then and there. But it's bad to do that just because then it's all out of now being here, it's all surface.
Right.
But it's a good thing. Like, if you're crying and everything, I'd rather not have someone give me tissues with this stuff. You need to heal. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's good. Thanks for sharing. Somebody else had their hand in the back. Somebody else want to share back here?
Not really.
Okay. Anybody else? Working through this? Want to share?
I'll share.
I switch between big and little ego all the time, but I didn't realize it until you pointed out. Woe is me. Oh, it's graduation. Oh, I can't do it.
Yeah.
In my story, I started out with like being on the enabling side and trying to change somebody else, kind of getting in the way of the drug and wanting to change, and then like getting into like the self-pity mode, and then realizing that I pretty much like signed up for everything that I was dealing with, and ended up, having the whole can't beat a door scenario, and feel like sorry for myself.
Exactly. Good. Anybody else? Appreciate your honesty. You've heard it said before, and I'll share it again because it bears repeating. Most of us are frozen at the age in which we began using. I may be 47, but in many ways I'm frozen at that age when I began using. That's why I struggle with this. Because I froze that part of me and I haven't grown up on the inside when it comes to these things. I still want to look away. I still want to deny. I'd still rather get numb than deal with whatever that is. So the challenge for us is to look at that and say, what do I need to do to move forward? What do I need to do in order to get unstuck? What decisions do I need to make? And that decision process is tough. As I've said before, I always know when my patients are at the point where the chemical part is worn off, because one of the first things that comes back, in fact, almost always the first thing that comes back, is their emotions. And when they start feeling those again, they start looking out that driveway that doesn't have a gate on it. They start wanting to get out of here. Thinking, why am I here, man? I'm just going to leave my bed. So I want to encourage you, when that time for you, if it hasn't already hit, when it does, bear down. Talk. Reach out to people in your community. Reach out to your counselor, your chaplain. Sponsor especially. And if you don't have a sponsor, start working on it soon, please. Don't wait.
It might help people just realize if you go back out again, like in the time,
Yeah.
because this could be the last time you do it, you're done.
Privilege to be here.
So, at least that's how I look at it. I will never see my kids again. Ever. So, that's scary to know, I think.
I get that. You've heard it before. You see the black ribbons on the wall, and you know what the black ribbons mean, right? What does the black ribbon represent?
Died in your addiction.
Die in your addiction. And believe me, we've only hung a few of the black ribbons that exist. This is just a taste. Okay?
Didn't Mike say that there's enough black ribbons to fill every inch of the wall in here?
Oh, yeah. We just don't want to overwhelm people. We want to give you hope. You come in here and they're all black ribbons, you're like, oh, damn. Forget it. I'm leaving.
But the yellow ones,
Yellow ones? What does that mean?
people who died sober.
They died clean. And that's why we have most of the yellow ribbons up, is because we want you to know that freedom is real and it's achievable. you can have your life back. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. It is. And you'll be doing it for the rest of your life. And that's because we have to constantly confront the person inside. We have to confront that person inside us that wants to run from our fears, run from our problems, run from our struggles. Okay? I'm going to share this one more time because it bears repeating in every single lecture. This is how you know you're heading down. Okay? In your heart, your mind, in your subconscious, or even out loud, you start thinking and saying, I got this.
That only applies if you're not doing the steps, right? Because if you're doing the steps and you got this, you can make it as long as you get the hell out of it.
I wouldn't say it no matter what I'm doing, personally. Because for me, it feeds into ego.
Right.
And I know that ego's going to kill me. You do what you feel comfortable doing. Usually, you won't start saying this until after you stop going anyway. And it blows my mind, but I get it. How often we'll be in the program, we're working the program, we're working the steps, we're clean, we're living good, we're living large, and then we decide, I don't need to work the program. Things are good.
I'm cured.
Okay? Just don't go there. Look, I know after a while it's a pain in the butt to go to meetings. You feel like I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that. I understand that. I get it. I do. But just make a commitment in your mind and in your heart. That is not an option. It simply is not an option. I don't care how I feel about it. There's a saying in the military. These guys go through boot camp. You go into war. You get in a firefight. You start getting your butt kicked. Okay? You're sitting in the middle of a desert with 130-degree average day temperatures. Okay? You got sand in every possible orifice of your body. It's miserable. Okay? Temptation is to let your emotions start kicking your butt. And any soldier who's in any kind of duty will tell you the worst part about being a soldier is not what you have to do out here. It's what you have to do in here. Every hour of every day. And what you'll have screaming at you, your sergeant, your commander saying, your emotions, what? Don't matter. Okay, look. And don't take this to the extreme. Of course, our emotions have a place in our lives. We're emotional creatures. But for us as addicts who are working this progress, working this process of living in recovery, we have to live by this credo. For years, I let my emotions kick my butt. I let my emotions bully me around. I should have gotten into the military. It's one of my biggest regrets that I didn't do that. Because I would have learned a lot about discipline. And what we have to learn is that our emotions don't matter. We need to get up every day and work the program. Higher power, sponsor meetings. It's not complicated. Higher power, sponsor meetings. Every day, contact all three, connect with all three, every day, every day, every day. If you do that, you have a shot. No guarantees. You have a shot at a lifetime sobriety. And it works. It works. All right. I'll leave you with a passage. It's a scripture from one of the says, when I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child. But when I grew up, I put away childish things. When I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child. But when I grew up, I put away childish things. For many of us, that's what we're looking at. Every morning I get up and I look in the mirror and I'm thinking that's a scary prospect. And I have to ask myself, what choices am I going to make today? Am I going to live for me? Am I going to be emotionally driven, or am I going to grow up the way childish things? Be the man I was meant to be. So please don't give up on this process. It's not easy. It's not, but it's worth it. It's worth it to have your life back. Okay, folks, if you start struggling, if you need to talk, I'm over in the chapel. If I'm not meeting with somebody, I'll drop what I'm doing and I'll talk with you. I'm here Monday through Friday. Talk to your counselor. Okay, reach out. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, sir.